Hey guys, I'm back again. This time we're going to talk about area and circumference. So we're just continuing on with that same page of notes that had the vocab up at the top. So this is circles, area, and circumference and area, GO5, but we're like halfway through. So we first need to talk about what circumference is. So the circumference is the distance around the outside of the circle. Okay, so the circumference formula can actually be written two different ways. One way is written with the radius and one way is written with the diameter. So you can take the diameter and multiply by pi. Or, if you're given the radius, you can take 2 times the radius, which we talked about up here, which is just the diameter, and multiply by pi. So either way, you're really multiplying diameter times pi. All right, so then we talk about area. So the area is really the amount of space inside your circle. So we're going to treat it like we're covering the circle. Okay, so we want to completely cover that circle, or think of like an area rug. You're thinking about the amount of floor that area rug would cover. So the formula that we would use here would be radius squared times pi. For this one, you do have to know the radius in order to be able to calculate area. All right, so we have some practice problems that we're going to look at. The nice thing about circles is all you're doing is really plugging in values into the formula and multiplying. So you can definitely use a calculator. I'll use a calculator to show you. So what we are going to do is first look at number 1. We're going to find the circumference and area of each circle. So I'm going to write C equals and A equals. So for circumference, remember, you're going to do the diameter times pi, or 2 times the radius times pi. So in this case, since I'm already given it in terms of radius, I'm going to do 2 times 6 times pi. And just a reminder, pi is equal to 3.14. Most of the approximations that I'm going to use in class use 3.14, so I would just type in 3.14 into your calculator. So when I type in, I won't do this with every problem, but 2 times 6 times 3.14, I get 37.68, and that would be centimeters because we're talking about circumference. All right, so then for area, you're going to take that radius and you're going to square it and multiply it by pi. So my radius is 6. I'm going to take 6 squared, multiply by pi. Well, I know that 6 squared is really just 36 because 6 times 6 is 36. So if I do 36 times 3.14, I get 113.04 centimeters squared. Okay, so that's area and circumference. So like I said, all you are doing is just plugging in values and solving. So then we look at number 2. So my circumference, I'm going to take 2, multiply by the radius of 3, multiply by pi, which is just 3.14. And when I type that into my calculator, I would get 18.84 meters. Then for area, so I'm going to take the radius and square it, which would give me 9. So 9 times pi would give me 28.26 meters squared. All right. Okay, so the next one, we are given the diameter of this circle. So circumference, I'm just going to take 10 and multiply by pi. And when I do that, I would get 31.4. and that's millimeters. Then for the area, I need to figure out what my radius is. So I know that the diameter is 10 across, so my radius is half of that, which would be 5. So I'm going to take 5 squared and multiply by pi. So 5 squared is 25. And then I would take 25 and multiply by 3.14, and I would get 78.5. And that would be millimeters squared. All right, so then the next one, once again, we're given the diameter. So I would take 16 and multiply by pi. And when I do that, I would get 50.24 feet. And then for area, half of 16 would be 8, so my radius is equal to 8. I'm going to take 8 squared and multiply by pi, which would be 64 times pi, and when I do that, I would get 200.96 feet squared. All right. Okay. So now we move on to a couple application problems. So for number 5, we are only looking at the area of the semicircle. Well, we know we're given the radius. The radius is equal to 3.6 meters. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to plug that in to my circle formula for area. So I would do 3.6 squared times pi, but realize that we have a semicircle. So a semicircle is half of a full circle. So I'm going to take that area formula and divide by 2. So in my calculator, I would type in, I'll show my work there. Okay, so I would type in 3.6 squared, which would give me 12.96, and then I would multiply that by pi. And remember, I'm using the approximation of 3.14. Okay. But now I need to take that total, that product, and I need to divide that by 2 because I'm only finding half of the circle. So when I find that, or after I do that division, I would get 20.35, and my units are meters, so it would be meters squared. So it's really important when you have a semicircle that you remember to divide by 2. All right, so then we look at number 6. So number 6, it says a 360-degree rotating sprinkler that sprays water at a radius of 11 feet is used to water a lawn. What is the area of the lawn that is watered by the sprinkler? Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is we need to calculate that area. Well, we are given that the radius is 11 feet. So in order to figure out this problem, we need to do 11 squared times pi, which you're essentially doing 11 times 11 times 3.14, right? That's all you're typing in your calculator. And when you do that, you would get 379.94 feet squared. And that would be your answer. So that's your radius squared times pi, and then there's your answer. All right, so in the last one, the diameter of a bike wheel is 2 feet. How far will the bike go in one rotation of the wheel? So if we are thinking of a bike wheel, I'll just kind of draw it real quick. So here's my bike wheel. It's not great, I'm not an artist, but if we're talking about the rotation of the wheel is moving around in circles. So we are actually talking about circumference here. So I'm going to use my circumference formula. So I'm either going to use 2 times the radius times pi or pi times diameter. Okay, so in this case they give me that the diameter of the wheel is 2 feet. So I would multiply 2 times 3.14 or 2 times pi. Either way, you're going to get the same thing. And you would get an answer of 6.28 feet. And once again, that was circumference because we're talking about that wheel spinning around. Okay? All right. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask, and remember to fill out your Google form to go along with this. All right, we'll see you tomorrow.